All right, welcome to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan. I am with
Lisa.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I want to talk about something that I just seen that I guess has caused a firestorm, and I see why. It's a sensitive subject. Mm-hmm. Alister Begg, who is a pastor, who's been a pastor for a long time, been very influential in conservative circles, preached a lot of messages on the radio. I remember listening to him, solid theologically, or at least conservative theologically, and different things of that sort. Mm-hmm. I believe he's Reformed, Calvinist or Reformed in his theology. Mm-hmm. But he recently, on his broadcast, Truth for Life, made some statements that has caused people to question him, his ministry, mm-hmm. And his orthodoxy as a Christian. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to do really quickly is listen to the audio, mm-hmm. and then let's talk about it.
All right.
Okay.
Know that these people believe a very different agenda, that their lifestyle is orientated in another direction, and learning to say, but I have no basis upon which I could argue that I myself would not be where they are, were it not for the amazing grace of God, were it not for his compassion towards me. And in very specific areas this comes across. I mean, you and I know that we field questions all the time that go along the lines of, my grandson is about to be married to a transgender person, and I don't know what to do about this, and I'm calling to ask you to tell me what to do, which is a huge responsibility. And in a conversation like that just a few days ago, people may not like this answer, but I asked the grandmother, does your grandson understand your belief in Jesus? Yes. Does your grandson understand that your belief in Jesus makes it such that you can't countenance in any affirming way the choices that he has made in life? Yes. I said, well, then, okay, as long as he knows that, then I suggest that you do go to the ceremony, and I suggest that you buy them a gift. Oh, she said, what? She was caught off guard. I said, well, here's the thing. You're not going to, your love for them may catch them off guard, but your absence will simply reinforce the fact that they said these people are what I always thought, judgmental, critical, unprepared to countenance anything. And it is a fine line, isn't it? It really is. And people need to work out their own salvation with fear and trembling. But I think we're going to take that risk. We're going to have to take that risk a lot more if we want to build bridges into the hearts and lives of those who don't understand Jesus and don't understand that he is a king.
John tells us he was full of grace and truth, and we have to figure out how we can be full of grace and truth at the same time, don't we?
Yeah. Our words should be full of grace and seasoned with salt.
Yes.
So easy to get that upside down. And all
right, so this was actually in 2023, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. On his broadcast in 2023, I think he wrote a book called The Christian Manifesto, and then this was part of the conversation that he was having in relation to that book on his program. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that this was in 2023. Boy, my, how the internet works, right? Said something some time ago, and it's mm-hmm. just now, has just caught on, mm-hmm. But yeah, so a lot there, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? A lot there. And just a couple things that I want to say before we kind of discuss, mm-hmm. This particular situation. One, this is a very real and delicate situation, mm-hmm. or conversation, mm-hmm. especially as alternate lifestyles become more prevalent in our culture.
Right.
It's not reinforced as much in secular culture, so we don't have the reinforcement of culture to help shape how the Christian view is held within the public market space. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more prevalent, and more Christian parents are having to deal with this within their own household, with their kids, and how to live out the gospel with their families. Mm-hmm. And it's a very real thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, everybody has a theological perspective until that theological perspective comes face to face. And you have to live that theological perspective in light of what's in front of you.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, if that grandmother calling and saying, hey, I'm really struggling with this, this situation, and how to demonstrate the love of God without compromising it at the same time, wanting to be a witness, but not wanting to, compromise that witness. How do I walk in this in a way that exhibits both grace and truth? And that's real life. That's real life. And I often think about these things. It's real life. The question really is did Alister Begg, did he compromise on this? As far as I'm concerned, there's really not a biblical scripture that tells us what we ought to do. Okay. This is one of those things that has to be thought out,
right?
That has to be reasoned and used wisdom, you know what I mean, to actually navigate through. So there's no, the Bible is not giving us a clear direction on how we ought to work this out. Right. Also, he said attend a wedding, not all weddings. Right. So he was talking about a very specific situation with someone, giving them counsel. He wasn't talking about all weddings. Some of the stuff I'm hearing is like, oh, he's telling people that they can go to a transgender wedding. He said a wedding. He didn't say all weddings. He's talking about a very specific, situation, scenario. So I want to keep that in mind as well, not to say, well, his position is this. He admitted that it's complicated, saying that it's a fine line and that this is risky. It's risky love. It is a complicated situation. He also goes on to say that everyone's going to have to work out their own salvation, work this out according to their own salvation. You got to kind of do what your conscience allows you to do in this particular situation, think it through. But it is a complicated situation and it's risky. It's risky to love this way, and so I just wanted to kind of at least lay that out before, you and I talk about this. I'm not even sure what angle, to approach it. I know it is something that we talked about, but I know it's also something that we're walking through, knowing what Scripture says, but also knowing the world we live in. How do we think this through? How do we do this in a way that honors God, but also demonstrates, God's love to the world? So just what are your thoughts?
Whew. So that is a deep one. My thoughts are, regardless, at the end of the day, God has called us to love one another. So I do believe that we are to continue to love on, family members, friends, whatever, the scenario is. But at the same time, allow them to know that, even though I love you, I don't condone in this.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I don't want you to get that twisted. You know what I'm saying? I'm still going to love you. I can't condone in this. You know what I mean? And so, but that's hard. It's really, really hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's really hard too, because just like what you just said.
And it's easier said than done when you're not in the situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's easier to say what you would do until that happens to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And, I'm assuming if you have a relationship with a person that you over time, they know that this, that you don't, which is why he asks a very important question about the individual's life, her lifestyle. Is he aware of your faith? Are you living that faith out before that individual? And so, and then he's saying, in light of that, what would be the best way to demonstrate love in that particular situation? Right. But yes, if you're in a relationship with someone, I'm sure over and over again, you've kind of demonstrated like, hey, I don't condone that. Right. I love you, but hey, the life that you're living is not something that I will particularly condone, you know what I mean? Or particularly participate in. And that's what makes it complicated, right?
Yeah.
What does, I'm not asking you to answer this question, but if you have thoughts, that's fine. What does going to a wedding actually say? What does, buying a gift for somebody actually, say? You know what I mean? Like, is that condoning, that person, or being acceptant of their lifestyle, being acceptant of that as an event? Is your presence affirming, right? Can you affirm the person and not affirm what they're doing?
I think it can be, your presence can be affirming, it just depends, but I think you going is basically saying to me, because when I think of a marriage, I think of when we go, not a marriage, a wedding. When we go to a wedding, we're celebrating the union, the two of them together, the two of them joining together, And so if I don't condone that lifestyle, am I confusing them by saying, oh, but I'll come and celebrate you guys getting together? Is that confusing? Could that be confusing to my family member or whoever that has known that this is we've had these conversations, or maybe we haven't had these conversations.
Well, I'm assuming in this situation that they've had those conversations. Okay. If they have not had those conversations, I think that's different. Yeah. I'm assuming that they know where you stand. There's been conversations about this. There's a long-standing understanding of what, where you stand with this. So I'm not talking about like, hey, we haven't spoken about this. This is more being in relationship with someone.
But at the same time, I wouldn't want. So I guess you would have to figure out the relationship and the what would me not going do. You know what I mean? So if me not going is going to end this relationship, you know what I mean, or make them feel like I don't love them, then that's something I would have to rethink. You know what I mean? Because that's not worth it. They know how I feel about the situation. They know that regardless, I'm gonna love them. You know what I mean? Then, is it worth it for me to end this relationship over something like this?
Yeah. And no, I definitely get that, but I still think we're avoiding the question of whether you should go or not. You know what I mean? Just in terms of like, well, if I say I'm not going to go, and then depending on how you feel will determine if I change my mind on that. Is it right or wrong for a Christian to attend the wedding of individuals that are living a different lifestyle that they don't agree with? Is it right? Is it okay? Should a Christian, attend that wedding? And by that Christian attending that wedding, does it mean that they are affirming the lifestyle and that they're celebrating the union per se? Does it mean that? And I think that's where this conversation gets really complicated, right? And I know it can't be answered in a podcast just like this, but I do want to just say a few things that really are not going to, I guess, bring any easement to where we stand on this or anything like that. But I will say that, one, I think it's a case by case scenario. It's a varied situation, right? I think we have to think through these things, pray our way through these things.
Definitely.
Seek guidance and wisdom through these things, because the answer is not always going to be the same. I think the reality is that we live in a complicated world, a sin-filled world that's complicated. And unfortunately, we don't have a decision-making roadmap as much as people want the scriptures to be kind of a, tell me what to do, point A, point B. We have to use wisdom, right? And we got to take some risks as well, right? But here, I will say this too. I think the world right now, the culture knows what Christians stand against. What they don't know is what we stand for. I think in today's culture, we have demonstrated really well what sin is, what God hates, what Christians are opposed to. But that has not pushed us to love people further. It's not pushed us into uncomfortable spaces where we have to love people who are different. I think it's easy for Christians to just say this is unbiblical, or for Christians to say, this goes against what the scripture says or what God says, and then not have to deal with it. Not have to engage it. And I think we got to do more risky loving, and we have to, that sounded bad, huh? We got to do more, take more risks as Christians to demonstrate what the world does not know about the Christian faith. And that is that it is a faith that exhibits love. So much so that the person whom we gather around gave himself because of the love that he has for them and for all other people. And that love actually caused him to become what he was actually trying to save in order to save us from ourselves and our sin. And so I think we gotta, to be honest, I think we gotta do a better job of demonstrating what the love of Christ looks like, even in hard situations. That doesn't mean that we're going to compromise in situations, or we're going to lower the standard that God has given us. It doesn't mean that we're going to attend all these weddings. But to me, what it does mean is that I'm not in a hurry just to say, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not in a hurry just to say, no, this is not going to happen. You understand what I'm saying? Or, I'm going to think through it.
Yeah.
I'm going to think through it in a way that brings God glory, but also demonstrates the love of God in a world that's very complicated.
Right.
Now, personally, I don't know. I'm just being honest. I go back and forth with a lot of things. I don't know if attending something means that you're condoning it. Right. I think that's, I think that's going a little bit too far for me. Like, I don't think that just because I attend something means that I'm down with everything that's happening there. I can support a person and not support everything that comes with that. You know what I mean? So, and in saying that, I think sometimes that what that says is that somehow we're in sin because they're in sin. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
and
that's not
right.
That's not the case.
That's what I was gonna say too just now while you were talking, was that I'm not saying that going or not going is going to send us to hell.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying, I don't believe that if I go, that means because that I feel like I've sinned, or the reason why I'm not going is because I don't want to be in sin.
Right.
I don't think that is the scenario. I think it's more of a question of, would it be a good witness? Would it, you know what I mean? Would it, what would it do to what would it do to others that are there, or, or other family members or other people, you just kind of have to think of it as a whole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, and I get you. And that's kind of where the problem comes into me. There's no way we're going to be able to appease everyone in every decision that we make. And that's my problem. And that's, I believe that sometimes that's why Christians don't do the hard things, is because we're worried about how we look to other Christians. We're worried about how we look. You know what I mean? Like, there's always some, something that's keeping us from stepping into a place where we're being vulnerable and just really kind of entering into that, because we got all of these things to worry about. You know what I mean? And we can't make everyone happy. If I'm looking at it from the perspective of the grandmother who's looking to attend that for her grandson, who else is there is not even a part of. Now, again, I hear what you're saying. You might want to take those things into consideration. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if there's a way to avoid when you're doing love, risky.
Yeah.
Love. I don't know if there's a way to avoid people not having something to say about what you do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know if there's a way. I mean, people are going to take this, what we're talking about right now, unpick it apart and find something to say, like, oh my gosh, you understand what I'm saying? Like, there's no way, that you can please everyone. Right. Especially in situations that are unclear of where, there's not really a clear point of where the text stands as far as, how to love people, although you don't agree with where they are.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would just say, like I said, just to close this off, love costs, is risky. I think we the world knows definitely what we stand against, but I think we definitely need to demonstrate more what we stand for. I think that we need to demonstrate the love of Christ in ways that, sometimes are going to get us called friends of sinners. I mean, Jesus was accused of being, a friend of sinners because he spent time with them. He didn't spend time doing what they're doing, but he spent time in their presence enough to be able to demonstrate his love for people. And I think we need to do the same as well. Now, I think these situations are going to be worked out, on a case by case basis. My only thing is we should spend more time thinking and talking through them, and instead of just making rash statements of, this is sin. This is, when there's nothing there that says that it is.
Right.
Or this person is compromising because they did X, Y, and Z without really realizing why they did X, Y, and Z. Or simply people are writing him off. They're just like, oh, he's old and he needs to be set down. And, I'm just like, wow, he was good with you until he disagreed with you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. We would love to hear your thoughts on this complicated subject. Perhaps someone is dealing with this subject as we speak. It's something that, again, is going to be very prevalent and is very prevalent in our culture. Yeah. It's something that you and I talk about, that we, in all honesty, it's something that you and I talk about. And I don't know if we've come to a place, but the reality is that we got to think through this, in step with our faith and look to love without compromising the gospel or the goodness of God.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning into the Church Dropout podcast. Talk to you soon. God bless.
Good night.